A team is doing well when they look like they're playing well within themselves and they win by about 200 runs. Welcome to the shiny side. We're looking back at South Africa's fantastic, massive win over New Zealand. And we have with us today, once again on the show, Qazi Umair Ali. How are you doing, Qazi?
Good. Thank you for having me, Faris. Always a pleasure.
Good stuff. So before we get into the conversation, I'll quickly do the 33-second summary of today's game. So New Zealand won the toss, put South Africa in, oddly enough. South Africa were about 60 for 1 in 15 overs, but from there, they didn't lose another wicket till the 40th. And it became a 200-run partnership. De Kock and Van der Dussen got hundreds. Miller got a quick 50, and South Africa managed to cross 350. New Zealand were about 45 for 1, but from there, they just simply collapsed at 65 for 4. And they were eventually 157 all out for a massive win. So 27 seconds. So yeah, Qazi, what's your initial reaction at that game?
To be honest, a little flabbergasted. I expected a better fight from New Zealand today, considering especially their last match. They almost got those 388 against Australia. So I would think they would have gone in backing themselves. In fact, at the close of the South African innings, I was of the opinion that South Africa were like 20 runs short, given their last match. But, I mean, yeah, it's funny, how things sort of pan out. And needless to add, maybe for Pakistan, I mean, after all, that is the
major
issue right now.
We will come to that also. But I think
just to sum it up.
No, I was just saying.
Please go on.
I think we have to start with this. The whole world is talking about how South Africa dominates batting first. New Zealand toss जीता, उन्होंने decide किया कि हम bowling करेंगे. I know it's in hindsight, though, it is what it is. But how did you see that decision at that time?
Yeah, honestly, after actually, it was a bit. It came as a surprise to me. But मैं honestly बताऊं, क्योंकि वो न्यूजीलैंड ने पिछले मैच में almost 388 चेस कर लिए थे, तो मुझे लगा कि they backed themselves. उन्होंने कहा कि यार हम 388 के करीब पहुंच गए थे, तो ठीक है, अगर वो 350 या 340 भी बनाएंगे, we'll give it a shot. But इंटरेस्टिंग बात जो आपने बात करी कि वो व्हेन साउथ अफ्रीका पहले बैटिंग करता है तो लंबा स्कोर बनाता है. सेकंड बैटिंग में they've struggled, Netherlands and then Pakistan. I mean, I think Pakistan is the only team that actually choked them to almost a 270 defeat. So I mean, it was a bit of a surprise, but I think New Zealand backed themselves and they said कि नहीं ठीक है, we're running on a high, we've had a good start. And then again, ये बात हम पहले भी कर रहे थे और बहुत से लोगों ने कहा कि न्यूजीलैंड क्या शुरू में ये तो नहीं है कि they've peaked a little too early. सारे उनके अच्छे मैचेस में वो शुरू में जीत गए. And then they had the last 3 matches have been a little circumspect in the sense कि वो India से first they lost, then it was Australia, and now there's not even a fight against South Africa.
And if you look at the sequence of wins, right? So they beat England. That seemed like a big win at that time. But we've seen England की form को क्या हुआ. So essentially what they've done is they've beaten the 3 so-called lowest ranked teams, Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Netherlands, and then they also beat England, and England again is struggling a bit. So I think as the tournament has heated up for them and they played the big boys, they haven't, and now it's 3 games in a row. New Zealand doesn't often lose 3 games in a row in a World Cup.
It's almost like Pakistan, we hadn't lost 4 either before Bangladesh's match, and so we came back. But interesting point, New Zealand started off, like you said, with playing the easier teams. England, I mean, from the last podcast we had, remember, we both thought, and everyone thought, England will be like the team to look out for, given their experience in the IPL and all. But, none of that worked out. So, yes, these are tough games now. Ab yahan se iske baad they play us. And so, at this point, I would back us to beat them. We have a good record against them in the ODIs, not only here, but even in the T20 format. So, it's going to be tough. For ab aaj ki jo ye loss hui hai, इंटरेस्टिंग बात इसमें ये है कि देखो they have lost by almost 15 overs का margin spare करके. That run rate has come down to 0.44. Pakistan is -2. They're not that far. If we beat them by like 40 odd runs.
And keep in mind, if Pakistan does beat them, whatever the margin is, it's going to impact double over, right? Because it hits the run rate of both teams. So that game's margin is very important for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess before we move on to Pakistan stuff, if you look at today's game, right, we have to talk about South Africa. Now, generally South Africa is the team and they're batting first, scoring 300, 350 plus consistently. Today, they played 50 dot balls in the first 13 overs. They were about 60 for 1 in 15. And that they were playing slightly slower, but that's kind of how they play. And generally there's this trend, Kiji, you have to go all guns blazing from the beginning, but South Africa are doing this very differently. Very often, 35th over, they close to run a ball, and that's when they explode. So do you think they're kind of showing everybody that, there's more than one way to score 350 consistently?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, but I would also add, you see, look at the batsmen who are scoring the bulk of the runs. It's always those two at the top. It's de Kock and Vanderson who are always, I mean, de Kock got his 400. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. We're like almost mid-stage in this World Cup and he's gotten 4 already. He's running absolute brilliant form. But अगर आप देखें कि शुरू में आज की जो विकेट थी उस पे बॉल उस तरह से नहीं आ रहा था. The ball थोड़ा सा it would वो पड़ के skid कर रहा था. It wasn't coming onto the bat exactly like it had been in the past matches. The wickets over a period of time in this World Cup have slightly gotten tougher for batsmen to score on. The earlier wickets, and I think there was a lot of criticism to the Indian groundsmen कि वो सारी ऐसी wickets बनाई हैं कि 400 रन बन रहे हैं, 300 रन बन रहे हैं without any issue. Everyone's a batsman on these wickets. तो आज वाली wicket में difference था. And you see that when South Africa bowled, I would like to make special mention of Maharaj. He bowled with absolutely intent and application of mind. He read the pitch. He figured कि वो कहाँ से turn हो रही है, and that one wicket he got against, I think it was the left-handed batsman, I forget his name, New Zealand ka. He absolutely bamboozled him, much like the Kuldeep.
And you could see that the pitch was taking some really good turn when he got that wicket, right? You could see the pitches roll also.
Exactly. So, and also, you make mention of India's match against England the other day. There was a lot of talk about Shami bowling seam up and landing it on the seam, but a lot of credit to Kuldeep Yadav. Yeah, he absolutely bamboozled Butler. Butler had no idea where the ball came in from. So these two spinners, obviously, we look forward to playing them and seeing them in this World Cup. But the intent from South Africa was there. When they came out to bowl. Also, I think we have to make mention of their fast bowler Jansen.
I mean, I think can we just finish up with the batting first? Let's finish up with the batting in the first innings first, right? So South Africa now have 4 guys who scored hundreds. I don't know if any other team has 4 guys who scored 200s, out of which de Kock has scored 4, Van der Dussen has scored 2, and then Klaasen has 100 and another 90, Markram has 100 and another 90 odd, right? So they're showing that there's different ways they can play, and while their batting lineup may not be the longest one, they can do it in different ways. So again, good well done on them. We have to talk about Trent Bolt now. Trent Bolt his record in Asia now, his strike rate is over 50. And even today, I think he went for about 49 in his 10 overs, he's got 1 wicket. So there clearly seems to be a slight issue with him being able to get wickets. Do you think it's because teams are completely looking to bat him out and attack everybody else? Or do you think there's been some kind of a decline in his skills on the Indian tracks?
Yeah, I think, I'll go back to the Australian match. If you recall, towards the end of the Australian innings in the Australia and New Zealand game, he went for a lot of runs there as well. And he was having a difficult time controlling his line and length and mixing the balls. He tends to bowl one line, he sticks to it, and he sort of backs himself. And that didn't pay off well against Australia. And he continued the same today against South Africa. If you see the last few overs of the South African innings, they really teed off. They were 315 at the 45 over mark, and then they ended up over 350. And he allowed them. Those were all length balls, pitched up, no mixing of deliveries. I understand it was small ground, but it was also small for New Zealand. It's an equal match. So I think Trent Bolt is struggling. He's having the same issue which I thought Karan was having in the English team. I thought both of these would be, their top bowlers in terms of pace. But both of them, for some reason, have not been able to read the pitch and make the most of it. So there is definitely an angle of struggling for Trent Bolt right now.
And if you look at South Africa's bowling, I guess, and to coming to your point now, I think Jansen's the guy who probably the biggest surprise package for me, at least, maybe not for South African fans who follow them more closely, because he's been getting them regular top order wickets. He's left armer, gets good bounce, and he was just too good today.
Spot on, Faris, but also look at his height. It takes me back to our days with Mohammad Irfan. Why we couldn't manage him, why we didn't, manage him better than we did. That height factor is so important. Go back to Pakistan, South Africa, see the bounce he was getting, the way he trapped Imam. They had a plan against him. They realized that he wasn't playing well outside the off stump. They put that deep gully in, and that it was the bounce that did the effect. And today as well, if you see the batsman, it's not about his length, it's the bounce that he generates because of his height. You know, the wicket had no demons in it. It's just, you know, the elevation of the ball that the batsmen don't read. And then he's the surprise package coming into this World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, so I guess that's for today's game. Now, in terms of what this means for Pakistan's chances, so I guess just to reiterate what this means, right? In terms of if Pakistan wins its next two games and New Zealand loses to Sri Lanka, Pakistan qualifies. But even if Pakistan wins the next two games, New Zealand beats Sri Lanka, then it'll come down to NRR. And New Zealand's NRR is a bit closer to ours after the massive defeat they've had. So,
that's right.
Do you see? I have three words for you: qudrat ka nizam. Is that playing out? How do you see the situation now?
Look, you see, qudrat ka nizam will. I mean, 92 में भी तो qudrat का nizam ही था. I mean, let's be honest.
But if I can just cut you off, 92 में था, but 96 में भी वही qudrat थी, 99 में भी वही थी, right? So that's the reality.
उस वक्त इमरान खान भी था ना, फिर लोग कहेंगे कि आप भूल जाते हैं. But anyways, coming back to the conversation, yeah, देखें, for Pakistan's sake, you're not going to get wins like Bangladesh, like you did yesterday. You know, do not expect New Zealand to, you know, capitulate like they did today. It's not going to be like they'll get bowled out for 35 overs or so, or give you like a walk in the park. So it's tough going from here. But like I said, you have to win the two and then hope for the best. Honestly, Pakistan making it to the semis would again mean a stressful night for us, because it'll be Pakistan-India then. If India continues to win all
you never know, right? Because I feel like if South Africa can beat India on Sunday, they could end up topping the league also.
Yeah, I'd actually be more comfortable with that. I'd be okay with the Pakistan South Africa.
I mean, let's make it first, and then I'm taking kisko khelna hai. But I guess the other my thing is, to be honest, my mindset for Saturday would be, yaar, pehle match jeet jao. Don't try to win with a run rate, right? Match jeeto pehle.
Yes. Jaise bhi jeeto, match jeeto. I think this combination is working. I think we also need to make mention of the fact that now, dekho, in my opinion, at least, the combination has finally started to work for Pakistan. I've been saying to a lot of people since the beginning of the tournament, you see, we started in going in with Hassan Ali. I have nothing against the guy. He puts in a lot of effort, but he's been someone who has not been in the team for the last 2 years consistently. Wasim had been traveling with the team. He had been playing, and he's obviously, you know, he generates more pace than Wasim. I think that's apparent. He got hints of reverse swing yesterday. I haven't seen any bowler get reverse swing this entire World Cup. Even Shaheen hasn't gotten any reverse. So if that combination is working, I hope we back him. Fakhr, thankfully, is back in form. This combination with Fakhr and Shafiq works. The team is set. I hope they just play to that.
By accident, we've landed on the right combination. But I think on the Wasim point, right, I think, like you said, I think he was definitely high in the pecking order. He was in the squads for the Asia Cup. And generally, पिछले 1-2 साल से वो team के साथ 30 matches खेला हुआ है वो. Lekin I guess हुआ ये, and I would have still gone with Wasim, but I think what happened was, in the Asia Cup, the one match he played in the warm-ups, he was all over the place, right? So somehow Hassan Ali was preferred. And to be honest, to be fair, at that point, मैंने preview पे बोला था कि I would go with Wasim, but most people, generally, even the pundits were like, हाँ ठीक है, Wasim तो मान खड़ा है, Hassan Ali's experience उसको ले आओ. So I think we have come to the right combination, but I think at that point, a lot of people weren't really saying it was an obviously wrong decision by the team. So I feel like it was a 50-50. I think they went the wrong way, but
I guess desperate times calls for desperate measures.
And so there's one more thing I want to ask you about, by the way. So when teams are chasing these big scores, right? So they either go all guns blazing and they either get close, or they realize very soon that they've collapsed, and then they change the approach and they optimize for NRR. When New Zealand was 60 for 4, I wasn't quite sure उन्होंने सोचा क्या. They didn't really say, okay, fine, let's try to do 250 पहुंच जाए, NRR को बचाएं. But they didn't even try to really go for those. So what do you think the approach was there? It was a bit confusing for me.
I totally agree. You know, we have this other WhatsApp chat group with a cousin of mine, and we were discussing the exact same thing. We were like, yaar, ab unke 5 out ho gaye hain. You know, if they're a sensible team, if they need to watch out for their net run rate, they would bat the overs out. ठीक है, 250 बनेंगे, 275 बनेंगे, 300 बनेगा, but run rate तो बचेगा. But I guess, like I say, Pakistan isn't the only one, fooling up or screwing up in these 100 matters.
Yeah.
After all, we also had 4 overs to complete against South Africa. We didn't think of those runs. It's been the story of the
But that's
tournament.
different, right? Because in that case, you're trying to set a higher score. So, I mean, I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but I still, it's still a balance, right? Here, you are losing the game for sure. So you still
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like आप थोड़ा
आप सही कह रहे हो, but I want to make this point कि देखिए, this entire World Cup has been about one-sided matches. I think the only close matches we've had is Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and then Pakistan, South Africa, and New Zealand, Australia.
That's it.
उसके अलावा it's been a one-sided affair. And I think even with teams like New Zealand, they've realized initially कि अगर हम chase कर सकते हैं तो chase करेंगे, नहीं करेंगे तो collapse करेंगे. And there's never been that X factor or that World Cup वाली feeling was missing. अब वो पिछले एक हफ्ते से थोड़ी आनी शुरू हुई है. You've had close games of New Zealand, Australia, Pakistan, South Africa. But again, today was a bit of a disappointment. You expected New Zealand to give up a fight. I know 350 is not easy. Any day of the week you need to bat in, but थोड़ा सा कोई fight होता. I guess होता है. I guess one bad game, and again coming back to, I just want to make this point before we end. South Africa be chokers and don't be so.
But to be honest, I'd be very surprised if they win a knockout, right? I still think so, right? So that by choking a concept, yeah, you're really good in the league, but जब knockout आता है, that's where you struggle.
Knockout आता है, yeah.
Even in 2011, if you remember, they were the only team to beat India in that World Cup, which India won, and they were unbeaten in the league, but वो quarter final में आगे हार गए. That's the thing, right? Before we move on, I'm just going to pull up their fixtures now. So New Zealand, we know they play Pakistan and Sri Lanka both at Bengaluru, which I think probably suits New Zealand and their stroke play. South Africa play India and Afghanistan. They're already sitting on 12 points. So I think if they can beat India, they're probably in a really good position to top the league also.
Yeah.
But it'll be an interesting game.
So, I mean, for Pakistan's chances, given our history with India in the World Cup, given the thrashing we got, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we can always come around. South Africa is now the team to look forward to. If they ever had a chance of winning a World Cup, I think this is the World Cup. I think this is their year.
First, let's get to the semi.
But I mean, look, for South Africa, at least it's shown that they're getting in there. And so if they're there, so I'm saying, look, if I have to back a team now, and if it's not Pakistan, my team is South Africa.
Sure.
I really hope they make an impact and they don't choke. It's not easy. Bavuma, honestly, for me, is a surprise package as a captain. I thought Klaasen would have been a better choice, but yes, they've stuck around with him. He's delivered the goods. He's got the team gelling together. So they are the team to look forward to. And like I said, India, please, आप एक चीज और note कर लें, Afghanistan को rule out ना करें, please. Afghanistan is also a force to reckon with. They've shown it against us and other Sri Lanka as well. So it's going to be interesting. 1 week of cricket now coming up.
True. And before we move on, before we finish the show, there's another game tomorrow coming up. It's India taking on Sri Lanka at the Wankhede, which is one of the flattest tracks in India. Looking at India's likely 11, so Hardik Pandya is still not back for this game. So I guess the only potential, I think what's happened after the last game is I think Shami has gone higher in the pecking order than Siraj, even though he didn't play the first few games. I guess the only question for them is Ashwin comes in for Siraj. How would you set up the 11 for tomorrow? What's your take?
Yeah, देखिए, if I'm talking from a Pakistan point of view, then Sri Lanka has to lose this match for us to have a chance. With all those scenarios that we just discussed with New Zealand.
I think Sri Lanka doesn't have it's not an issue anymore because since they lost to Netherlands 2 days ago, right? So I think they can't. If we get to 10, we'll be ahead of them.
But if they win,
both their games, they'll finish on 8 points, and if we win both, we'll finish on 10 points. So I think
Sri Lanka that's right. Sri Lanka has 2 more left. Still. So I mean, from purely cricketing point of view, if you look at the way India is going, Ashwin, yes, from day one I've been saying, it's a surprise package. Ashwin has been missing. वो खेल ही नहीं रहा है team में. This could be that game where they bring him in and try him in. कि जी क्या करना है. Traditionally, this wicket is known to spin. Kuldeep is spinning it like a top. Might as well get Ashwin in. Sri Lanka has been struggling. The batting is absolutely fine. ठीक है, they had one bad day against England, but I mean that was a wicket in which everyone was struggling to score. You know, just to say England also struggled, but I think the team is fine. At the max, I see is कि वो Ashwin को शायद as a trial bowler खिला लें, because देखो India की place तो secure है ना, they are not going anywhere. उनको तो semi-final का spot confirm है like South Africa. So try and test match. Maybe
I have
Ashwin would be
one more question on the 11. So I've got Iyer / Ishan Kishan at 4. Now Iyer probably is the one person in the top 6 who hasn't got that big score yet, and I would be tempted to include Ishan at some point. Now the thing is, if you want to make a change, the semi-final is not the time to make a change. So do you think India would think about bringing Ishan Kishan in with 3 games to go or 2 games to go, or do you think they're going to stick to the same 11?
And I think they'll stick to it, because you see, bowling mein to I can understand bringing in a spinner or not playing a spinner. Their pace bowling has been absolutely phenomenal, so they're covered over there. But batting, yeah, chal rahi hai usko. I don't think generally, you know, in subcontinent people like to, you know, chido the batting lineup if it's doing well. I don't think India is going to do the same. एक अय्यर का फॉर्म चल रहा है, वो स्कोर कर रहा है, टीम जेल हुई भी है. I mean, look at KL Rahul, यार. KL Rahul was nowhere in the setup before the Asia Cup, and then he just stormed in with that 100 against Pakistan, kept wickets, and now he's like a.
That was also a question mark. 6 weeks ago, that was a question mark. It's no longer a question mark.
It's no longer a question mark. You know, he took that chance against Pakistan with both hands, and you know he's made life difficult for Rishabh Pant to make a comeback. Although I thought no one would have imagined. So yeah, I think I'll stick with the same batting lineup.
And before we finish up, Qazi, there's a matter of a quiz. So we've done this before on the show as well. The quiz question for the day is, who was the South African captain the last time they beat New Zealand in the ODI World Cup? You have 5 options in front of you.
I think it was Krone. It was the 96 World Cup.
The answer is correct. The explanation is not exactly correct, but it was actually Krone in 99. So the point being that South Africa has actually played New Zealand in every single World Cup since, but they haven't beaten them. So this is the first time they've beaten them after 24 years. But that's the thing. With South Africa, they are doing things this time which they haven't done in a long time. They beat us after 24 years. They beat the Kiwis after 24 years. And let's see, maybe this is the one they can win the semi-final also. So let's see how it goes for them.
I'm going to end with by saying one thing, you know, for India and South Africa both. India haven't had that bad day in the World Cup as yet. They haven't lost a match. So I don't think it's going to happen with Sri Lanka or the Minas now. It's probably going to happen at the knockout stage, like the 2019 semi-final anti-climax, where, you know, by the way, today, Vokes has,
Willie?
the English, not Willie, the English left arm guy who made them win the World Cup last time around. I forget his name. The Test captain as well. The one who came out of retirement. Stokes in his biography has actually accused India of playing slowly in the 2019 World Cup, saying that they played slowly to ensure Pakistan doesn't get to the semis. And then you remember that classical run out of Dhoni against New Zealand. So one bad day has to come, whether it happens now or at the penultimate game or in the knockout stage is still to be seen. The same I would say for South Africa.
I mean,
although South Africa
for India, this is the so-called golden generation, right? And this is the last opportunity for them to win an ICC tournament. Because if they do not win this one, then I mean Kohli, Rohit, etc., etc. I mean, I know Kohli won in 11, but that was Dhoni's team. Since then, Kohli's captain and Rohit's captaincy, they haven't won anything. So this is really about cementing their legacy, or otherwise there'll be question marks about it if they don't win, I think, in my view.
Yeah, fair point. I think 2011 was also about cementing Tendulkar's legacy. I think that was his last cup as well. So yes, last chance for Kohli and Rohit to sort of go out on a high. But yeah, let's be honest. The laws of probabilities. One bad game, one bad hiccup has to happen at some point. For India's sake, it doesn't happen in the knockout stages. It happens tomorrow. But for South Africa and India both. South Africa have been on the receiving end. They've lost to Netherlands. Yeah, I mean, it's not. They lost like 2 years ago in the T20 World Cup as well, and we were all up because we got through. So one bad game for India, for them, for their sake, if they need to change it, make any changes or take any combinations, do it in these next three, because after that, semi-final and final, I wouldn't risk it. High-profile games, not easy to manage.
Good stuff, Umair. Thank you for being on the show.
Most welcome. Always a pleasure.
And pleasure having you. And if you like our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back tomorrow night after the India-Sri Lanka game. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.